I am a big fan of Transformers, and after watching Transformers 1 a while ago, I was inspired to make a build based off of this epic movie. Today, I'm going to be building Megatron, who is probably one of the most iconic characters of all time. Welcome to Rando Builds, remember to click like and subscribe. Let's get into it. This specific build is based off of the latest Transformers 1 movie, but also some elements of the Generation 1 design where I thought it looked better. As per usual, let's start off with the body. This rendition of Megatron is pretty blocky. I used a combination of brackets and snot bricks so I could build details on all sides. This also allowed me to get some flesh details like the dark red grills and line up the slopes nicely. This was a fun challenge, especially in a smallish form factor, but I couldn't help but make my life hard by making it 7 studs wide. This just made getting some of the structural elements a little bit more difficult. I used a purple piece for the Decepticon logo, but if this was a real set, I think this would be a really cool printed element. Let's move on to the legs. The thighs are pretty simple, using a Mixels joint to connect the body and tiling it off with some plates and brackets. You might notice the headlight brick at the end. One of my new favorite techniques is to use these modified bars with a stud on it as joints for knees or elbows. They take up less space than a Mixel joint, and I think they look more seamless. I used this to attach the lower leg, which was the most complicated part of the build for me. It was made using a lot of brackets and plates that slot together pretty perfectly. There are some pretty tricky techniques, like lining up the front and back parts and connecting them for a stud reversal. As for the feet, they're pretty basic, using regular slopes and bricks. To attach the feet, instead of using a Mixels joint, I did something a little different. Using a Technic brick, I attached one of those T-bar pieces using a friction pin. This will allow the feet to be able to swivel and even move back and forth a little. Some parts can be a bit flimsy, but I think the looks are worth the trade-off. There's not much going on with the arms. I used a Mixel joint to connect the body to the upper arm, and again using brackets and snot bricks to get details on all sides. Like the knees and the legs, I used the stud with bar piece, which I think looks pretty slick. I topped it off with some brackets and plates to complete the look. Weirdly, one of my favorite parts of the build are these fists. I used some brackets and plates as fingers and thumbs, as well as some slopes to give it some shaping. I think they look great. Let's get those hands on and pop the limbs on. Next, we have the head. It's made using some brackets and snot bricks, then covered up with plates and jumpers. I gave him quite a big jaw, which adds a lot of character, and the slit for the eyes is pretty menacing. Let's get his head on his body. Lastly, Megatron needs his classic weapon, which is of course the fusion cannon. Although it's not really that classic since I did the Transformers 1 version, which seems to be a 3-barreled setup. Regardless, the barrels were made using some Technic connectors. For the ends, I used these clips to block off the ends and give it some depth. I attached those on a simple block of brackets, using jumpers to offset the barrels in a star pattern. This easily attaches to the side of his arm to complete the look. I hope you enjoyed this brick-built version of Megatron from Transformers 1. I'm happy with how he turned out overall. The look and feel of Megatron was well captured in my opinion, with his broad shoulders and other little details that add depth to the build. You might notice that the feet are also mostly grey in the front. This is an element of the G1 design I preferred, as they are black in Transformers 1. While Megatron isn't my favorite character in the Transformers universe, he is undeniably recognizable. I'm hoping that he can somehow make his way into the official LEGO Transformers lineup at some point. Let me know how I did in this rendition of Megatron from Transformers 1. Stay tuned for more builds in the future. Remember to like and subscribe for more rando builds.